This week's question is, can you only ascend if you're vegan or vegetarian at least? Welcome, everybody. This is quite a loaded question. I feel a few weeks ago I stumbled upon a thread on Instagram where exactly this was being talked about. Spiritual community is usually in consensus that vegetarian or veganism is the way to go. Compassion with animals as well as humans is needed in order to continue the path. Of course, there were a lot of meat eaters present in the thread who felt not very heard. And to be fair, it was not a very balanced conversation. And this triggered an interest in me, and I wanted to know exactly what is going on, what is spirit, what is the higher perspective here, ask spirit, and this is what they said. I want to share it with you. We want to distinguish two things. Those of you who can choose between food and have the freedom to choose from a huge variety, a huge selection, and those who cannot, who have to eat what is on their plate, what is available. Why? Either not being themselves responsible for the cooking, like a child, yes, a prisoner, people who simply cannot deal with this themselves, who have to eat in order to survive. And let's not twist around here different concepts. So when you were born into a collective that values non-violence so greatly, then the majority of the people chooses to be vegan, vegetarian. There is always an underlying collective root. There is always an underlying collective cause, we will say, that requires you to be part of that collective and work together on this particular form of non-violence. By be super mindful, hyper mindful, very mindful of not eating, harming an animal, not consuming one. That is a lot of primary force that you eat also. And simply not for you in this life. So when you feel drawn to that particular religion and being not part of this particular collective, then you want to either be of support or belonged in a former life very closely to that collective, or simply have accumulated much karma that requires you to stay away from even more harm. So that is one part, the not wanting to harm as a deeply rooted desire. But there is also, especially in the Western world, as you say, the Western hemisphere, and by that term we know you understand who you are, a deep desire to right wrongs of that particular collective that is present in their mind, in their collective mind also, and be even better than good. Having caused many imbalances on earth through power, white power, as you say, historically. This is connected to your food choice, even though you're not aware of this maybe. But you try and try and try to become better and better and better and more peaceful and more harmonious than the rest, and erect new frameworks of religion, thought patterns, simply for you to fit in into one of those categories and finally show someone how it's done, instead of recognizing your own failures in this, your own missteps. It's not your part to be the teacher sometimes. On earth, many times, it's hard for you to be the student. And in this particular area, we would like to address simply the Westerners amongst you. Be mindful and very, very humble about your role on earth, especially when you have the power, when you have the status, when you have the choice, selection. In order to pronounce, this is how it's done, I am vegan, look at me. You are not. How can you? Without asking the particular individual, why is it that you are not vegan? Why is it that you choose to have animal protein? We strictly speak today of food consumption, right? We do not speak of anything other than that. Most of the time you have the power. You have the inner feeling of, it is my right to compare. It is my right to call out the other one. But is it really? Be humble about this. Very, very humble. Because part of Ahimsa, the great principle of non-violence, is being very humble. Being very humble about your goings and doings on earth. Not only in consumption, but also in thought. And in comparison. By comparing, you're already judging. You're already making the separation even bigger than it already is. And your twisting role of student and teacher. In some regards, you may learn from the East, you may learn from the North, you may learn from the South. In other regards, it's the other way around. But by making up a new religion of any kind, be it spiritual, be it scientific, and proclaiming that this is the way to do it. This is the way, people. You're misusing power. And you're not practicing Ahimsa. You're not practicing non-violence. You're making up a new framework, a new condition. You will be part of us if, or unless you. But that is not what is meant by that. Food. Now let's come to the connection of nature and body. Food is more than calorie counting and nutritional value. It has a spiritual component. You're eating something, you're consuming something, you're taking it into the body, you're integrating something that is of primary force, that is of soul. Even if it does not have an individual mind, it is part of a collective understanding of the all. It is of life. It is of feelings, emotions, experiences, right? The concept of standing witness on earth is undervalued. We want to point that out. It's undervalued. Just be and see and feel. Judging, comparing, arguing is of the mind, is of conditioning, can only be through a conditioned perspective. Now, some of you feel very emotional about this. Be witness also to your own emotions, to your own feelings and convictions, and stand for them. But listen very carefully to others, very carefully. Invite the conversation if you must. But please do never tell another they cannot ascend unless they become this and that, unless they are doing this or that. Because no, that is simply wrong. Ascending is not applying to any rule made up by you. Ascending is part of the natural world. And nature needs to recreate harm, eliminate harm, love, care, foster nature, nourish. And in that needs to also have a place for consuming each other. The body sometimes requires very specific nourishment. For some of you, this is a specific reason. Be just mindful of what you're doing when you make up principles, when you make up rules. You can only be part of us, you can only be part of our society, you can only be part of Ascension if. What do you neglect here? Well, you neglect here. That is not your choice. It's not your choice, it's their choice. And you're making up conditioning. That is all. What is provided on earth is within a range of interest. That interest lies in each and every individual. And the value of food is immeasurable. We want to say that because it sustains life, and what sustains life is sacred. So do not shame the food on your plate, especially if it looks tasteful to you and you desire to eat it. Appreciate it, we say. Give thanks and realize it is life, sustaining life. Do not feel guilty when consuming food. Do not feel ashamed. Stand witness of who you are and what you eat, how you are sustained by this. Making up new rules on earth that are outside of nature's rules is a tricky business. And one form of non-violence may actually be very harmful to others. Veganism, or the form of eating less, or the form of not craving heavy nutritional or dense nutritional food, is a natural progression in many forms of spiritual advancement. But it still requires that you have undergone particular stages in your evolution, meaning that you, O great vegan, have undergone a particular transformation in which it was required of you to consume and eat meat. By not granting your fellow human this stage, this transformation, you are actively hindering their ascension. You're not encouraging them to ascending any quicker, because some stages need to undergo, and they cannot be jumped over. In this, we need you to stand witness, ask you for patience and also inner evaluation of yourself. Why do you feel the need to be better? Why don't you feel the need to help and encourage and listen? That is an undervalued thing on your planet. The listening part, especially now in this day and age, we feel everyone is creating a great noise. Everyone is giving their opinion. Very little of you actively, actually are listening. Go enough into inner silence. That's not valued. But please know the truth cannot be found on social media. If anyone is very convinced about something, they desperately need to tell you. Don't listen. Don't listen. You can only come to the conclusion yourself. And once you realize that, you also realize that you cannot make another awaken, that you cannot make another understand, that you cannot claim another. They need to claim themselves and take care of their own advancement. Don't meddle. Food is a very individual choice, a very individual desire. It should be sacred, it should be respected. Thanks for sticking around. It was a long channeling. I had to cut it off a little bit at the end. When they were actually speaking about animals and how we treat animals sometimes as pets. An interesting piece, but I felt it needed a break here. So, what do you take away from this? I think interesting was the phrase standing witness, a bit of an ancient phrase for, witnessing something or not handing out your opinion left and right. And if you really think about it, this is really happening in our social media age. I mean, this channel is no different. I'm here on social media handing out opinions or higher perspectives, if you want. And I always speak an intro, I always speak an outro, so I always, give my personal experience or opinion away. Yeah, but please, and I hope I do say that often enough, you're your own judge and you need to do obviously what feels right for yourself and within your body. So if you do have the feeling, I need meat in order to be healthy, in order to feel strong, balanced, by any means, eat meat. I really recommend that for you. And you don't even need my approval, of course, but if you ask me in regards to this is what I will say. Also, the hint that, and I don't think I've ever heard that before, the hint that we all have to go through our individual stages of maybe eating meat or maybe judging, in order to arrive at the point where we say, I reject that now, I don't want it or I don't need it anymore. That can't be hastened, that can't be triggered. And we should not feel people bad about themselves or their choices, their needs, by pointing something out that might be hurtful to them. Really something to think about. I'm really relieved that it is not a prerequisite for following on the spiritual path, or gaining more spiritual depth. But of course, it is worth contemplating, and being non-violent is something we all aim for as spiritual people, probably, right? But that also stretches to the way we think about others, judge about others, force our opinions on others. And I think that is the most demanding thing about Ahimsa, the aspect of thinking non-violent and being really in my inner being non-violent towards others. that is way more difficult than simply not eating meat, at least for me. And the ultimate, the ultimate test or recommendation, that just be grateful of what is on your plate, what you are here to have now, what you consume. That is so precious, to really not judge yourself or feel guilty about your little treat, maybe, because otherwise, why bother, right? What's the thing in eating it? I really love that, and I think if everyone can eat mindfully and be aware of what you're eating, that was a spiritual being, or that was something that was part of the natural world that you're now taking really inside of your body to sustain your own life. That is something that we can really treasure, and good practice for all of us. So, did that answer our question? I think yes. Please be reminded also that this is a collective perspective, or a perspective for the collective. The answer that they sometimes give to an individual is very, very nuanced, very, very different sometimes. When I have a channeling for clients, they do give out food recommendation, especially if something is in imbalance, or somebody is ill. They do say, please don't eat this or do eat that, at least for the time being, in order to regain life force. So that can differ, and that can even differ from one month to the next. I think humans just need to be more adaptable and more flexible with our ideas of what is right and good. In the end, it's all a human idea, human construct, veganism and even spirituality. And I think the standing witness here is really helpful in order to just experience more and judge less, of course, but also, just feel into yourself and what you are here to do, or what is your truth. And let's try not to be so much in each other's minds, and rather ask and kind of share your reality, rather, instead of imposing yours upon another who can never ever see what you see and feel, right? So that was our higher perspective for this week. Let's hear from you. So how did you take this? Are you a meat eater? Are you vegetarian? Vegan? Everyone's welcome here. We don't judge. We don't shy away from you. Please let us know how you receive this. See you soon.